Hello, everybody. I am Philip Schafmayer and CMG. I am a member of Groom Team USA. I was the #1 groomer in the United States in 2019. I am an Andis global educator, and Andis and 123 Pet were awesome enough to ask me if I would like to be part of this series that they are doing on YouTube, which is part of online education. That specifically, I was lucky enough to be paired up with Gwendolyn for this episode, which is an episode specifically on online education and grooming in Dandyton, Ontario, which we are going to do on this adorable little dog that Gwendolyn has on our table. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Gwendolyn, and what's this little guy with name?
This is Gizzy. He is a poodle mix that is about 3 years old. He has a very difficult coat and has a very different structure. So that's why I think he will fit the dandy haircut, and I'm super excited to work on that with you. I am Gwendolyn, the pet stylist, and I have pretty much grown up in the shop my entire life since I can ever remember. And that's pretty much how I started grooming. I kind of just got the bug for it. I was always cleaning and helping my mom in the shop, and ever since then I've always been grooming. Just recently I started competitive grooming because my mom tried it out, and once I saw her doing that, I fell in love with it, and then I wanted to do that. And it wasn't her thing, but it was my thing, so
That is the
yeah.
first place I remember seeing you was at Intergroom 2019. I wound up winning the championship class there, but I was like, oh my God, who is this cute little, like, you were like, you barely could reach the table.
I was 10 years old at that time, and I saw you win that award. That was so cool. So I am super curious about your past with showing dogs. I have pretty much no clue about what that's about and everything, and I'm super interested. So can you give me a little background on showing dogs?
Absolutely. I actually got into showing dogs prior to pet grooming. Although for the majority of I've been in the industry a little over 23 years now. So for the majority of my career, I was actually in them simultaneously. But maybe like a year or two before I started pet grooming, I had a friend who got a show dog from a breeder. And at the time, I was 13. My mother was like, no, no dogs. So my family had dogs growing up my whole life until I came along, and I was a dog crazy one. So I didn't get my first dog until I was 16. But prior to that, I got to travel with my friend and her breeder, and we went to some shows. And then she started working for a professional handler, and I started working with her on the weekends. And that led actually to a career as a handler. Just, I loved it. I went to class, I studied, I tried. Studied everything I get my hands on, books at the library, dog magazines like Dog News and Show Site. I'm self-taught with grooming. I didn't go to grooming school. So that's actually kind of how I learned a lot, was literally just looking at the dog show magazines, at the pictures of the dogs and the pictures of the breeds, and kind of figured out the grooming and made a lot of ugly, ugly haircuts. But the one thing that I attribute a lot of my grooming success to is that I did start in dog shows because you learn structure first. And if you learn structure, you kind of develop your eye for balance. So you had asked me a little bit previously about you had shown some interest in getting into dog shows. And I think that is a great, great thing for anybody to start. You learn the different breeds, you get to see them and see how, like, when you can see them in person, the haircuts make more sense.
I feel like all the amazing groomers that I see, for example, like you basically just won immediately, and I've seen multiple people like that, and I feel like they're all showing dogs. So how did you start competitive grooming?
So I was a professional handler for just about 20 years, and I was a pet. Uh, I worked at a pet grooming salon, always like as a second job for the majority of that time. And I got to the point where I was tired of traveling and being away so much. So I was like, I'm going to open up a salon. And I already knew how to groom whatever you threw at me, but I was like, I wanted to open. I knew the idea I had in my head was a really high end boutique type salon. So I wanted just to have my certifications and get my NCMG. And I didn't realize this until after I did it, that this is usually a process that most people take a few years to do. Me being me, I certified with all of my practicals and writtens at the first show I went to where I competed and scheduled my masters for the next show. So any PGP was my first show. And I competed, did all of my practicals, all of my writtens at that show, and I actually wound up going best in show there.
I have been practicing for my masters, the written part, and I have a few dogs aligned, different breeds and everything. So I'm trying to get that as soon as possible. Obviously, I haven't done anything serious yet, but that is crazy. I can't believe, whoa, you got that so fast. So how did you feel when you won, like, best in show, like, immediately, and you just, like, blew up and were so successful?
I know it was crazy. It was very surreal. I had a lot of fun. I knew a very few of the people there because there's a few of us that cross over and do both. So I saw a few friendly faces, and a few of them were like, "Why are you here?" Like, kiddingly. But so it was fun. And then it kind of, so after doing just those first two shows, I realized that I wound up making Groom Team USA Top 10 just from those first two shows. So then they were like, well, you have to come to Atlanta, which is where they announced them. So I competed at Atlanta. And then the next year I did any PGP again because it's my local show. And I wound up going best in show, best all around there again. And I wound up making the top 5. And so from those first 4 shows, I wound up actually making the alternate on the world team.
Do you think showing dogs allowed you to be so successful when competing?
Even if you don't necessarily show dogs, go to dog shows. You know, we all know that you need to have a good scissor finish and make sure that, you know, your dogs are even side to side when you're trimming them for grooming shows, and your shape is right and your lines are good. But what dog shows add is it develops your eye for balance. You know, you learn the structure of the breed, but it develops your eye for balance, and you get to learn what the proper silhouette for each breed is, which to me is super important. You know, if you have a good plush finish, but if you black it out and put it in silhouette, you're not sure what kind of breed it is, then to me it's pointless. And that's one of the things I attribute to part of my success is I was able to, I already knew how to put the profiles for each breed on the dogs. And also too, I touched on a little bit before, I feel dog shows, because it's so down to the minute, like your schedule when you're showing dogs, that it teaches you to be good on the fly and with your speed. Have you taken any online lessons yet?
I've taken online educational classes and also online private one-on-one classes. They're much different than going there in real life. It's a little bit more difficult to like know exactly what they mean and like see exactly the lines that they're talking about and everything, but I'm happy we even have the technology to be able to do that. So
Absolutely.
What is your strategy you use to teach people online?
I've done a few webinars where I teach on a specific breed or topic. What I do is I have somebody holding a camera, and then I have my Zoom set up so this way they can get close-ups and stuff. For me, the technology part of it has been the biggest challenge, getting the recordings done right, and then links aren't working. But I actually love the whole premise of it. And I especially love the one-on-one teaching because it lets me focus more specifically and tailor the lesson to what the person that I'm teaching specifically wants. And then I can really like get in depth with it.
What would you like the person learning from you to do that you think would help you teach them?
So the one thing that I have encountered kind of regularly with some of the private lessons is I feel like people get almost a little intimidated, or you know, they don't want to ask too much. And I always tell everybody, it's your time. Be specific. Get what you want to learn out of the lesson. You know, we as educators, if we have a really good idea of what specifically you want to learn, we can tailor the lesson to you much better.
I also feel like another difficulty with the online educating is like not being able to see like every angle of the dog. You know what I mean? Because in grooming, angles matter so much, because if you cut something wrong on the wrong angle,
Mm-hmm.
it can really like ruin the whole haircut. So that's one thing that I've also had difficulties with.
You're dead on with that. But what I find, what I do, I don't know about, I can't speak for other people, but me personally, what I do is like, this is a great camera angle for me, for you, because I can see clearly you, I can see your dog. And what I'll have you do is move your dog around the table. So stand it up in profile, face it so it's front on at me, stand it up so it's in the other side of it profile, and then show me the rear of it. This way it gives me a view from all over. I mean, you lose the top view, but I should be able to explain to you easy enough what to look for, how to go at something. And I also always try to find out from this person I'm teaching ahead of time what kind of learner they are. You can tell me how to do something and I'll figure it out, but I'm a super visual learner. So I can learn the most just from watching somebody, even if they don't ever say a word. To me, you don't start great. You know, people ask me, how did you learn to groom like that? Making a lot of ugly haircuts. But that's the other thing, is you have to be super, super, super honest with yourself. You don't have to run around bashing yourself and pointing out every flaw of every groom you do to the world, but you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be your own worst critic as well as your own biggest cheerleader. So you need to give yourself the pat on the back when you do something and you nail it, but also too, don't drink your own Kool-Aid. If you know you got to work on something, or if something's not great, bang it out. Know it before the judge gets there. You have to have a good balance of not beating yourself up too much, but beating yourself up where you need to. It's the best way to, you always need to keep growing. For people watching, if we're going to do a dandy trim, whether it be on a dandy or a little cute poodle mix like we have here, you're going to need like your Pulse Li5, because we're going to do a 30 or a 40, depending on what you're comfortable with, on the inside of the ear. And you're going to want to take all that hair off, because you really want a dandy's ears to lay super flat. You know, their head should be large. It should be in proportion to their body, but it should be large and broadest at their back skull. So we're going to use, since we're not hand stripping this and it's a poodle coat, I'm going to say that we're going to use a 4F or a 5F on the body, like what would be the jacket if we were hand stripping. And then for the furnishings and stuff, we will use a combo of a straight shear, a curved shear, super curved if you have it, but not necessary. We can use a chunker, and definitely a thinner for certain parts of the coat. Let's set in his body trim.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you did all of your typical sanitary and pads and stuff. If not,
Yes.
I always do my sanitaries. I get my dogs used to like a 10 or a 15 on the Li5 for their sanitaries. If some dogs are sensitive, you can pop on one of the guard combs that it comes with, so it's just a little bit longer. And then I always do like a 30 for my pads, because I like a clean pad. So for a dandy, their head is literally separated from right behind the occiput, and you're gonna come right up under the jaw, kind of like my beard line. And you're gonna do the whole neck. You're gonna leave the center of the back. You know where the withers of the dog is? So find your withers, and for people at home who might not know, it's the highest point of the shoulder. And this is another thing that absolutely is a huge benefit for dog shows or going to handling class, is for grooming, you learn how to properly stack a dog, which will let you present the groom you work so hard to do to the best of your ability. That's far enough. When you stack their rear legs on any breed, their hock should be perpendicular, Gwendolyn. So if this is the ground, their hock should be like this, never like this or never like this. That's how you know that you've pulled them out far enough, is their hock should be straight up and down. And you're going to want to hold his head a little bit higher, so his muzzle, the top of his muzzle, is parallel to the table. Perfect. Let go of his tail. Take your comb. Go right straight up from the back of where his leg is, straight up to the top line. Like draw a visual line. And that's going to be the lowest part of your back. Because remember, with a dandy, it should have a roach to their top line, so the whole dog should be one of like a flowing curve. That's where we're going to make the lowest point of our dog. So you're going to clip down from right behind the occiput, right to that point, down the sides of your neck. And the other thing too with a dandy, when you look at them from the front, I don't know if you want to spin him before you start clipping. Spin him so his front faces the camera. Their front and their rear should look almost like a U. So if their legs really come in like his do at the elbows, you're going to want to clip off with your body length blade just enough. Like you don't want to pull it in. So it should go from the shoulders straight down like this.
Okay.
So you don't want to clip so far down that it starts to come in again and look barrel chested. And you're going to skim down the side. So we're going to leave a hole underneath. It's going to be the chest, the front leg, and then a skirt line that's going to follow right into the rear leg and go into the foot. Everything above that is going to be clippered. And on him, because we're forming a top line, you're going to leave that strip on the back and we're going to scissor that in.
Okay.
So I'd say probably start with a 4F and let's see how that works for his body.
And would you like me to do the neck here, stopping right at the point you told me to stop at?
Yep.
First?
Start at the os. I always work from front to back on a dog. So we're going to leave the head for last. But so you're going to draw a line from right below the occiput, almost like you're disconnecting the neck from the head. And draw a diagonal line down that's going to come up around right to where the chin meets the throat. And then everything I just described behind that can get clippered. So feel with your finger to see where the dog starts to drop back in towards its elbow. And that's where you're going to skim off. Don't go too low.
Was that okay?
That's perfect. And then follow and do the match it on the other side. So the reason I'm having you use a 4F, Gwendolyn, is because a true hand-stripped Dandy Dinmont Terrier is it's a hand-strip jacket, it's a longer jacket as well. So it's like 1.5 inches to 2 inches. So we wouldn't want to do this with like a 7 or a 10. I mean, you could, depending on the client, but I like to leave a little bit more length, which is why I'm having to use the 4F. And this way we can have more of a realistic look. So when you're doing the ribs on the jacket, what you're going to do is you're going to mimic the underline for the top line. You're going to kind of make an S shape. So it's going to go from the highest point of the chest. It's going to dip down a little bit. It's going to come up over the loin and then come down on the back leg till it reaches the hock. So if this is the front of your dog's head, here is where the chest meets the throat. You're going to take the corner of your comb. I'm using the big Andis fluff comb. And you're going to draw, come down, and pretend this is the bottom of your dog. So you're not going to want to be way up here. You're going to want to literally follow the contour and be low. Come down like this. Come up for the loin. And then you're going to fall off and go right to the hock. Yep. Keeping in mind that when you look at your dog from the front, it should come flat and the skirt should be underneath it. You shouldn't have the skirt come out like this, like a Christmas tree. And that's how you'll know. And you're going to have to gauge, yes. And you're going to have to gauge each dog depending on how they're built. So if they're really wide ribbed, you might have to come down a little bit lower so the hair doesn't stick out from underneath it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If they're really, really slab sided and don't have any rib spring, you can come up a little higher and scissor it in so it doesn't look so narrow. We're going to finish the jacket. So finish your 4F and you're going to clip her down the sides, leaving that strip down the back. So avoid the strip all the way from where you stopped it. Avoid like maybe a 2.5 to 3 inch strip down the center of the back all the way over the tail. Everything else on the sides, take off.
So basically I'm going to take all of this off apart from the skirt, so I'm not going to go in. I'm kind of just going to skim
You're gonna
off
go
here.
straight. Yep.
Okay.
So here's where the creative grooming is going to come in. We're creating that really curvy Dandy Dinmont shape. So that's how you're going to know where to skim off. So we're going to fake that he's not really a dandy, so he's not naturally shaped like that. but this is where using your clipper and it like changes the eye because the color will change. You know, the shorter area is going to look different than the longer hair. So we're going to make that shape on the body by the way we clipper it off.
So I'm going to come in here and then kind of skim off.
Exactly like that.
Here.
And you're going to continue that and wrap it tight right around their butt. So if you look at them from the back.
All the way around here?
Yep, take all that off. That line that we're leaving, you're going to taper it to almost a point. So like it's just the width of the top of the tail. So you're going to be able to scoop all around the top of that thigh into the back. And what I'm going to have you do is, so you know how similar to when you do a clean poodle face?
Mm-hmm.
You do the shape like a soft V, not a hard pointed line, but like a soft kind of V from like the base of the ear to the base of the ear. You're going to clipper out from when you lift him up, right where you clippered with the 4, from where his jaw meets his neck, and then the same soft V underneath with your 7. What that's going to do, it's going to move his whole throat back and give you the impression of more chest in the front. So You're not going to take it quite as far as you clip it with the 4. You're going to do a softer, like a U-ish V shape and go a little bit up from that. And it's going to just set the top of the throat in. Mm-hmm. And now skim down, right, almost follow he's got the perfect little diagram, the white, how it comes to a V.
Mm-hmm.
On the top. Follow that, go right to that with your 7. Yep. Yep, just like that. And just skim off. Now you're going to skim off into the 4 from there. Yep. Mm-hmm. And now if you turn him to the side, you can see like it'll have pushed his whole front back. See now how his front, like his throat moved back, so it sets everything back this way? With a dandy, their tail shouldn't be so straight out. It should be like a saber. So it should be more this way. Just like that. Yep. Because now when you trim it in, you're going to be able to follow that shape. That whole top of that curve, take it off. Remember, don't let your point go into the top line. So you're going to keep your point so it's following the curve. And then what you can do is you can wrap just that back part around the sides so it goes into your foreblade. Don't go too far forward. We're just doing that back over his rump and his side. Doing a total profile and have your points end where your clipper work stops. And that will set in that line for you the easiest. And just take it off. And now what I would have you do is switch to your straights. And just take all that hair off. Just get after it. And now you can do the same thing. So blend off from the sides to get rid of that hard line where you went from your clipper work to your. And what you're going to do is you don't want it all to come up to a gentle point if you're looking at the dog from behind. So it all should pull in towards the top. And you're going to want to take anything off that sticks out and interrupts that pretty just soft S shape. And if you're more comfortable, especially while you're learning to put that angle in, you can use a chunker and then just finish with the straight. Just take off the point that's right in the middle. A little bit higher, the point right on the tippy top. Yep. You want that all to be flat. And use your comb. Comb everything up and out. So now you're going to go to the rear leg and just blend that line the same into the furnishings. So same thing. When you look at the rear from behind, it should be a U. So they shouldn't do this, the leg, so you don't want all this bulk down here where the furnishings are. It should come up and kind of match over the top. So now what I would do, once you're done with that part, I would take your chunker and on the bend of the stifle, take that really in tight. So you accentuate that curve. Yep. And I would literally take off right to the top of the hock because you want their hocks to be low set, which means they're short. So I would bring, yeah. And remember, scissor, like when you're scissoring a curve, constantly do a sweeping motion. Don't take off one spot and move. Scissor this way, back and forth, like a windshield wiper. Now what I would do is standing from behind the dog, hold the tip of his tail like this, fluff all this up, and you're gonna scissor the top of the tail kind of short. So you're gonna blend the top of the tail into where you clippered. Because remember, with them you want a saber, so it should be a natural, almost like a mild flag. So it should come to a natural taper, a point at the tail, and be a little bit thicker underneath, but take off the sides and take off the top. And remember, same thing, curves. You're making that S continue.
Can I use my curves backwards?
Yeah, absolutely. There are no rules in grooming. Whatever tool you can make work for you and however you can make it work, there is no such thing as that's the wrong way to use that scissor. Use that. If it works for you and it gets the job done you want to get done. The only wrong way is like if you're holding your scissors wrong and it's going to put extra stress on your body. But as far as like, be innovative. If you can make a tool work for you that's not a traditional way to do it, by all means.
Am I going shorter than that?
Yep. The underneath of the tail should not be curved. It should be more of a straight line. You're going to take all that stuff in the middle off. Yep. And now take your chunkers and with the points and go into it this way. And it's just going to make that line look a little bit more jagged and a little bit more natural. And just do that all the way down. Fluff all the tail out from the sides and take it off side to side. So you don't want it as poofy, that's the right shape, but you want it narrow. And you can use your chunker or your straight, whatever. And you see how it's starting to look more like a flag, like a natural fan kind of tail?
Mm-hmm.
Now what I would do is I'd move to your curves and do your round your feet. Remember, they should be columns. What I do is I pick the foot up, looking at it from the pads, take a fine tooth comb and comb everything towards you and trim everything flat to the foot. Don't come up this way. Like looking at the foot, trim everything so it's flush to the bottom of the pads. When you're fluffing the foot, don't fluff out like you would normally. Just take it and brush everything straight down towards the pads. You're not forming your shape so much with this step. You're just cutting off everything. Because this is one of the things when you're competing, You want it to be clean to the bottom of the pads. So take that off first. You're not really trying to form a shape yet. Yep. All the way around. Don't go up. Hold your scissor flat to the pads. Do that on all 4 sides. So now with his feet on the floor, now fluff everything out. Perfect. Okay. And now use your curve, holding his head, and now trim the bevel with his foot on the ground. And that's the one thing. Stop what you're doing. I always trim feet from the outside in. When you trim from the inside out like you're doing, a lot of times most pet dogs, they stand east-west like this. And if you trim from the inside of them out, it accentuates that. If you trim from the outside, like from behind him, from the outside in, it'll make all 4 feet look like they're pointing forward. So you're gonna wanna stand behind him to trim that back foot. Yes. And now what I would do is hold your scissor, like if this is the foot, hold your scissor perpendicular to the side. I find if you, like this, that's a perfect angle. Like hold the flat of the scissor here, flat to the side of the foot. And that tends to be the perfect angle to start to round your foot in. Like that. That should be your first cut. That, because the shape of the curve, it will work for you. So it'll start making the shape of your foot round on its own. Yep. You got it. Now, obviously, he needs a little bit more hair, but I wouldn't take too much more off of that rear foot. Yeah, a little bit off the back. Just tighten it up to make the foot a little bit tighter, but it's a good shape. You just need to let more grow up by his groin. When I do the inside of the back foot, do it from the back. So what I do is, again, I pick up their opposite foot, so it makes them put weight on the one you're trimming. Stand directly behind him. But trim it from behind him. Yep. And now trim from the outside in. And what that does is, because you're trimming this way on the outside and this way on the inside, it puts the toe facing forward where it should be. So even if they stand wonky, it's an optical illusion. And you can trim straight up and see that lump above his hock? That can come straight off. Yep. Trim all that off. Perfect. I was just going to tell you to trim off there, because remember, you want to clear you, and that's perfect. So now do the same thing with his front legs. And what I do is, instead of trying to trim a round leg like a column, I trim a box. So I cut the sides off straight, cut the front and the back off straight, and then if you just take the corners off, it's a perfect column every time. And what you can do, like if you're competing with him, if you got white chalk and cholesterol and chalked his legs and his chest, like his furnishings and his head, it would lighten the color so it would look more like Dandy.
Oh.
But I would go I would chalk them in the ring, so it's that much more of a big difference.
That would be so cool. I have no clue how to do that, but I do have the chalk.
We could teach you that too. You do it with cholesterol.
Okay.
It's like anything else. It's something you learn, and at first you're going to be like, what am I doing? But you just practice and practice and practice, and it's fine. Anything outside of that perfect column is what you're going to take off. Yeah, see how much straighter you made the inside of that leg now? Yeah. And if you would follow the leg, like that's not a leg I would pick up off the ground and trim, because you're going to tend to want to follow it, and you're going to wind up trimming with the wonkiness.
Now, I feel like his foot and leg are really connected.
You want that.
Okay.
You want it to be one column. You don't want to see a foot. Perfect. Like for me, I can still see enough of a foot that I want the top, like his wrist, to grow in just a little bit more. You really don't see any of that. Remember to move around your dog as you're trimming, especially column legs, because if you stand from one vantage point too much, you're not going to get the three-dimensional finish to it. It's like when you go to the hairdresser, you ever get layers in your hair?
Yeah.
So a good hairdresser will cut your layers and they'll move around the back of your head like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you've ever had a bad layered haircut where they stand on one side and trim almost your whole head from one spot, and then you get home and you're like, why is this layer here and this layer here? You have to move around when you're trimming something three-dimensional.
There's still kind of like a line
Keep
separating
tweaking it.
right here.
Yep, right there, I see it. Keep tweaking it. Remember, from the front, from the front or the back, when you're looking at them like behind them, it should be like this.
Okay.
It doesn't need to go straight up. It should come in at the top. You don't need the hair on the sides on those corners. You just need the hair in the very center of his spine for the shape. Yeah, all that can come off, like in a 45-degree angle. Now set them up and kind of just step back and look at your shape. This is your first time attempting this trim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, you're gonna kill the grooming world. They're not gonna know what hit. So when you look at a dandy, they should be wide in the back skull with really big, soft, pretty eyes. So looking straight at their head, you're gonna want almost like a light bulb shape. To achieve that, you're not gonna want to take the hair off the very top of their ears. You're gonna start clippering on the flat part of their ears. Flip their ear open, and with a 30 blade or a 40, whatever you're comfortable with on your Li5, take all the hair off, all the way edge to edge on the inside of the flat of the ear, except for the bottom third of it for the tip, because that's where the tassel's gonna be. But I would take off the whole back of the ear on the bulb.
Do I just take it all off?
Don't cut into the hair in front of the ear, but the hair on the inside of the ear, yes. The back of the ear on the inside, take all off. You're only going to want to leave the last third of the ear. Everything else can come off. Where's the leather end? Show me where the tip of the ear leather is.
Right here.
Okay, so that's where you're going to stop. Flip the ear back over and let it hang. Pick his head up normal. So you want the ears to disappear down here, but this should still be full. It should be this shape.
Okay.
So you're not going to take any of that off. You're going to start clippering with you can do it on a 9 from like there, from like the eye level down. More. Go higher, honey. You can take all the way up to the top, like to the top of where like it folds over.
All the way up here?
Just on the back part, not on the sides, but on the back.
Okay.
Yeah, like all that long stuff, get off. Just always remember to watch the flat.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to want to cut it up a little bit higher. Remember, when you look at them from the front, right in front of them, you only need the hair that should literally just come down and match the top of the ear. Everything below that should tuck in, so all that can come off. You just don't want to cut into the top of the ear so it's too shy. So it should be a dome from the top. The widest point of the ear, the widest point of the ear should be a dome. Everything below that can come off.
I see it now.
Yep. There you go. You're getting it. And now flip to do your tassel, just cut it this way and cut out a triangle at the very bottom. Flip it open and match it on the inside. All that front can come off. Careful not to save up.
Is that?
Yeah,
okay?
You would have. It's okay. You took it a little, with a little too. Actually, no, the way it's sitting is all right. We're gonna just trim in the back to make it sit right. Now take your straight scissor and just edge the whole back of the ear. So just clean it up. And I always put the ear leather between my fingers, so I'm scissoring I'm scissoring against my fingers, not against the ear. Yes. And the other thing too, after you start to the top of the ear, take your tassel, hold it in your thumb against the nose, take your comb, brush all that jawline stuff down and all behind the ear, all to the back of the head. Now, so the back of the head is the perfect shape right now. It just had grown in. What you're going to do is take your curve and continue that line.
Into that?
Yep. Just like that. All that can come off. Yeah, you want to bring it up a little bit, up to the nose. Mm-hmm. And now what I would do is grab his chin hair, tip his head totally straight up, like straight up to the sky.
Oh.
Take your comb, brush everything down, and then take your chunker and trim a straight line across anything that hangs down. So what you're going to do now is tip his head down. So you're looking at the top of his head. It should be, again, same thing. So it's this shape, looking at him straight on. From the top down, it's the same thing. It shouldn't be a point at the front, but it's a light bulb shape. Not the back sculpt, the front of their face. So he should come slightly in from his cheeks. So I comb the hair all straight out.
Okay.
Comb everything out, and you're going to take, with a straight line, cut the whole front off. And watch it, you're not snipping the tassel on the ear too.
Okay.
And you can round it down underneath. Take that whole corner off. Yep, take it off. Keep going. Come back. The bottom of the front of that corner. That looks so good. You got it. Remember, the heads are Dandy Dinmont, think Dandelion. So you want this to be the focus of the head. Now the last thing you're going to do is hold the front of his face, turn his head to the side. Let his ear hang how it should. With your thinner, so you're going to take it off from the back and shape that tassel into like a point and a point that goes towards their head.
So like that?
Uh-huh.
Can I hold his ear for this?
No, because you want it to sit. So it's like literally and don't stop your scissor. Continue your scissor this way. So you're almost using your thinning shear like a razor as well. Yeah. You want to take that point off so that the front point of his tassel is going to become the new bottom point. You want to shape it so it goes this way. And now you can turn your scissor, tip your scissor so the tips are facing more towards the front of his ear. You can take off that whole bottom point. But even bring that, see the front part of that point, the tassel rather, so you can take the whole bottom part off towards it. I can't believe how good you're doing for your first try at this trim over Zoom on a dog that wants to like lick your scissor. Make sure you don't take the top too thin though. You want the thinnest part to be the front. Thin that, yeah. Perfect. So now what I would do is you're gonna trim a visor, but you don't want it clear. You don't want his eyes open. You want it to still be hooded, just lift it enough so you can see. So I would do that with a thinning shear. Brush it down, and you're gonna trim a half moon shape. So you're gonna come in slightly at the corners, but you're gonna leave the longest part here, and that's what's gonna continue that soft shape to their head. Yep. But when you're doing those first cuts, yeah, hold it perpendicular like that. And each level, you're gonna tip your scissor just slightly. Leave the length in the center. You're gonna pull the sides in, but leave the length here. So it's gonna be like a U, like a soft U or a soft C. And now tap up his head so you can see. You wanna scissor tap, scissor tap. Tap up his mustache a little bit. Lift it this way. Yeah. I think you got it. Let me see you stack them up so you can see the whole picture. And there you have your poodle mix. Now looks like a dandy. So I hope you had fun, Gwendolyn, because I had a blast today. This is so cool. I love doing creative, fun stuff like this, and especially when I have a student working with me that is as talented and as eager to learn as you are. I want to give a huge thank you to 123 Pet and to Andis for providing this opportunity for not only you and I to have fun today with this, but the whole industry as a whole, especially in the times when we can't necessarily be together. These videos are going to be a great resource for people to check up on and watch and just freshen up their skills. So I had a great time today.
Thank you so much, Philip. And thank you to 123 Pets and Andis for sponsoring this video. This was an amazing experience, and I can't thank you guys enough.